Previously on Dragon Age 2, we start about 10 years after the events of Dragon Age Origins, where a human woman, Cassandra, is interrogating a dwarven man, Varric. Varric is apparently an associate of the Champion of Kirkwall, about whom he wrote a book, and Cassandra wants the true version of its events. Varric takes us back to before the Champion was the Champion, before he even met her, back to when she was just Hawke, to the events of the first game in the apocalyptic blight in the Kingdom of Ferelden. The Hawke family consisted of the apostate mage Toni, future Champion of Kirkwall, and yes, I named my PC Toni Hawke, Hawke's younger twin siblings Bethany and Carver Hawke, and their mother Leandra. They were living together in the small Ferelden town of Lothering when it became the first victim of the blight. The Hawke family found an ally in their escape from Lothering, a soldier named Aveline, but a horde of the zombie/orc-like darkspawn caught up to them, and both Aveline's husband Wesley and Bethany were killed. The others only survived with the help of fabled witch of the wilds Flemeth, who gave Hawke an amulet and instructions on what to do with it to repay Flemeth. The surviving Hawks and Aveline took a ship to the city of Kirkwall, Leandra's hometown in the Free Marches. Aveline got a job with the city guard, and the Hawke family moved in with Leandra's brother Gamlen Amell. Leandra came from a rich family, but in her absence, Gamlen had lost the entire Amell family fortune over the years. A year passed somewhat uneventfully, and the blight back in Ferelden was defeated. Great work, first game PC Quatriel Serena and her various romantic partners and friends. The main event of note was a shipwreck that left a group of large-horned humanoids called Qunari stranded in Kirkwall. The Viscount, ruler of Kirkwall, allowed the Qunari to have a compound in the city until a ship could be sent to come take them home, though a small but fanatical group of Chantry followers were greatly displeased by this due to the very different doctrine the Qunari follow. Despite its small size, the city of Kirkwall had a sizable Chantry, which controlled its also surprisingly sizable circle of magi. The Chantry, think fantasy Catholics, believe that mages, those born with magic, have to be contained within a circle of magi watched closely by Templars. Circles vary in their strictness, but the one in Kirkwall was exceptionally strict under the leadership of Knight Commander Meredith. Hawke, as an illegal apostate mage who existed outside the circle in a city full of Templars, was attempting to regain the Amell family fortune to help keep her family under less Templar scrutiny. To that end, she accepted an opportunity that Varric, finally entering our story proper, provided her, partnering with him and his older brother Bartrand on an expedition farther into the Deep Roads than anyone had gone before and uncovering treasures untold. The Deep Roads are ancient dwarven kingdoms that were abandoned when the Darkspawn overran them in the first blight, and remain dangerously full of Darkspawn between blights. To prepare for their expedition, Hawke, Carver, and Varric recruited an apostate mage named Anders, who was a former Grey Warden, recruited by Warden Commander Quatriel, no less. The Grey Wardens are sworn to fight Darkspawn and defeat blights, so Anders happened to still have a map of entrances to the Deep Roads. While helping Anders in return, he learned that a friend had been magically lobotomized, or made tranquil. Anders was taken over by an enraged second personality, revealing his greatest secret. Anders was possessed by a spirit of justice, or perhaps a demon of vengeance. Next, Hawke helped a former pirate captain, Isabella, get an old associate off her back, though she was still in trouble for having stolen from that associate's boss Castillon, and then losing the relic she stole. Hawke also killed some mercenaries for a Chantry brother named Sebastian, who hired her to avenge the murder of his entire family, the ruling house of Starkhaven. After that, she helped a former Tevinter slave, the escaped elf Fenris, get rid of the slavers his former master Daenerys sent after him. As for our fellow Ferelden Blight refugee Aveline, Hawke helped her expose the corrupt current captain of the guard, and Aveline was promoted to replace him. Finally, Hawke took the witch Flemeth's amulet to a clan of Dalish elves nearby, where she was led to a shrine of the Dalish god Mythal by an elf named Merrill, and the amulet transformed into Flemeth. Ash of Belinar to the Dalish. It turned out that Flemeth, correctly, suspected her daughter Morgan would try to kill her, thanks again Quatriel, and, as Morgan had in turn suspected, Flemeth had taken precautions against this. At the behest of the Dalish leader, Keeper Marathari, Merrill returned to Kirkwall with Hawke. Once there, Merrill explained she was exiled for her interest in an ancient elven artifact, a mirror, or alluvion, and also possibly her use of blood magic. The alluvion was broken by the Darkspawn taint, and Merrill had contacted a demon to cleanse it, and still hoped it could be fixed. The time for the expedition arrived, and Hawke, Varric, Carver, and Anders headed into the Deep Roads with Bartrand and his hired hands. After weeks of travel, they found an idol made of pure red lyrium, a powerful mineral that is dangerous in its raw form but is processed to be used by both mages and Templars. Usually blue, an idol made entirely of red lyrium, possibly never before seen form of lyrium, would be extremely valuable. In a terrible betrayal, Bartrand took the idol, trapped his own brother Varric underground with Hawke, Carver, and Anders, and left them for dead. Ever resourceful, Hawke and her friends found another way out of the Deep Roads, and some more treasures of their own along the way. Unfortunately, they also fought many Darkspawn, and Carver was infected with the Darkspawn taint. Normally a fatal condition, Anders informed them that Carver could be saved if he was made a Grey Warden. Anders, as a former Warden himself, was able to find others in the Deep Roads, and convince the Wardens that Carver was worth taking with them. Once the rest of Hawke's party escaped from the Deep Roads, Hawke had enough money to buy back her mother's childhood home, though the victory was somewhat hollow, having lost Carver. Bartrand fled Kirkwall with the idol, but Varric was determined to find him. 3 years later, he managed to do so. Bartrand had returned to Kirkwall Kirkwall and was residing in a Hightown mansion, but Hawke and Varric discovered he was doing horrifying experiments on living people there. Bartrand was an asshole, but he wasn't evil, and upon finding him it became clear that contact with the lyrium idol had driven him mad. Bartrand had apparently sold the idol to some woman, but that hadn't stopped its effect on him, and he wanted it back. Hawke convinced Varric to spare his brother on the grounds that something was clearly wrong with him, and instead decided to get him some professional help. As for the rest of Hawke's friends and associates, they all required help with various tasks. Anders was becoming more involved with the underground Mage Rebellion, Meryl was trying different strategies to fix the Alluvion Mirror, Sebastian found out who hired the mercenaries that killed his family and took vengeance on those responsible, Fenris discovered he had a sister who was still alive, and Aveline found love with a fellow guard named Donnic. But what about Hawke's romantic ventures? Great news! This game also has a polyamory mod. Isabella and Hawke slept together, immediately, though Isabella scoffed at the idea of it leading to anything romantic. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Anders fell in love hard and fast and was real dramatic about it, and thus Hawke had 2 romantic partners and counting. Unfortunately, that's about as positive as things would get for Hawke personally. Things took a dark turn when a blood mage serial killer targeting older women in order to make a Frankenstein's monster version of his dead wife kidnapped Hawke's mother, Leandra. Hawke found and killed the blood mage, but she was too late to save her mother, leaving both Hawke and her uncle Gamlin devastated. While Hawke was trying to stay out of the Templars' hair and help her friends and family, some Chantry fanatics were causing trouble with the Qunari, including kidnapping and murdering Qunari warriors, poisoning neighborhoods and framing the Qunari, and even murdering the Viscount's Qunari sympathetic son. Unfortunately, the Qunari were not, as previously claimed, waiting for a ship to come get them, something we had started to suspect when they hadn't left after over 3 years. The leader of the Qunari, the Arishok, had lost an important Qunari relic, and he could not return home without it. It turned out this relic was the same one Isabella stole from Castillon, and while she had managed to track it down, she insisted if she didn't give the relic back to Castillon, he would kill her. While Hawke was distracted, Isabella ran off with it, deserting Hawke. With the relic definitively gone, the Qunari finally decided that enough was enough and attacked Kirkwall from within, killing the Viscount and taking the residents of Kirkwall hostage. At the last moment, Isabella had a change of heart and returned with the relic. Having what he needed to return home, the Arishok agreed to leave with Isabella. Hawke refused to let the Arishok take Isabella, and so the Arishok challenged Hawke to single combat. Hawke agreed, much to Isabella's horror, and after a long struggle, was triumphant. With the Arishok dead, the rest of the Qunari left the city peacefully, and Hawke was declared the champion of Kirkwall. Another 3 years passed, and though the Qunari were gone, the tension between the mages and Templars in Kirkwall was only increasing, and Hawke's personal life wasn't chilling out much either. Her role as the champion fortunately made her politically inconvenient to go after, but Knight Commander Meredith made it clear she knew Hawke was an apostate mage. No new Viscount had been elected since the Arishok killed the last one, and Meredith took on the role herself, giving the Templars more control than ever before. The corrupt former guard captain tried to carry out a smear campaign against Aveline, and there was even talk of replacing her with Meredith's second-in-command, Knight Captain Cullen, and the guard generally with Templars, but Cullen really did not want that and gave Hawke a heads up so she could clear Aveline's name in time. First Enchanter Orsino, in the meantime, was pushing back against Meredith's increasingly restrictive rules for mages, and Grand Cleric Althena, head of the local chantry, was insistent that it wasn't her job to take sides in the struggle. This all caught the attention of the Divine herself, head of the entire chantry, who sent word to Althena that she was considering an exalted march on Kirkwall, and so Althena should leave for her own safety. Althena refused, and Sebastian swore to protect her. Speaking of protecting, Hawke's friends still needed a lot of help. Isabella and Hawke formed a plan to trick Castillon into facing them directly, and they were finally able to kill him. Varric needed help with Bartrand's old mansion, which was apparently haunted, but it turned out to be the result of a broken-off piece of the Red Lyrium idol, which Hawke then had safely destroyed. Meryl and Hawke's relationship blossomed into a romance as well, and Meryl and Anders moved into the Hawke estate. Meryl's last hope of fixing the Alluvion Mirror died with Keeper Marithari, who let the demon Meryl went to for help possess her so that it could never possess Meryl, forcing Meryl to kill them both. Finally, Fenris met up with his sister only for it to be a trap sprung by Daenerys, but, with Hawke's help, he was able to kill his former master. After Daenerys was dead, Fenris pursued Hawke, and they slept together, only for Fenris's trauma to rear its head. He decided it was all too much, too soon, and broke off the romance with Hawke, though the two remain friends. For her part, Isabella admitted that she had, despite her intentions, caught a case of the feelings for Hawke, and Hawke happily agreed to let the relationship develop romantically, and thus the polycule stands at 2 girlfriends and a boyfriend. That's enough personal stuff. Back to the Kirkwall drama. Knight Commander Meredith had Hawke tracking down apostates because any mage that wanted to leave the circle was probably a dangerous blood mage in her books, and Hawke did her best to take care of the truly dangerous ones while convincing Meredith to go easy on the ones who were harmless. Over the last 7 years in Kirkwall, Hawke admittedly faced many blood mages and magic cults that would seem to fit Meredith's grim picture of mages, but Hawke kept insisting that this was the result of backing mages into a corner and making them miserable. Meredith greatly disapproved of this view, as did Knight Captain Cullen, though his stance had slightly softened over the years. Cullen was previously traumatized at the Circle Tower in Ferelden, where our first game protagonist Quaitrail grew up, when it was taken over by blood mages and demons. Many of the tower residents were killed, mages and Templars alike, and the survivors were tortured, Cullen included. Though Quaitrail rescued Cullen, he came away from the experience with a new, deep distrust of mages, and therefore a great appreciation of Meredith's tactics when he was transferred to Kirkwall. As time went on, Cullen slowly began to agree that Meredith sometimes took things too far, but he still believed in her ideals and the threat of blood mages and even apostates. That said, he also seemed to have opened up to the possibility of trusting at least some mages again, as he considered Hawke almost a friend, despite becoming aware over the years that she was one such dreaded apostate. Meanwhile, Anders claimed to have found a way to safely separate himself from Justice without destroying the spirit, but the tasks he asked of her, including distracting Grand Cleric Althena while Anders did something in the Chantry, made Hawke doubt this was true. Anders admitted he lied about the separation from Justice, but promised her it was in service of mage liberation, and it would be better if she didn't know the details. The final straw would come when First Enchanter Orsino came across evidence of secret mage gatherings. Afraid of how Meredith would respond, he asked Hawke to look into it, and she discovered a group of both Circle mages and Templars conspiring to overthrow Meredith. Things took a turn when they realized Hawke was onto them, and kidnapped Carver to blackmail her into helping them, even though if they just talked to her, Hawke would have been on board with overthrowing Meredith, which, to be fair, some of the group members seemed to be aware of. They weren't all on the same page. Hawke rescued Carver, but at least one mage resorted to blood magic, and Knight Captain Cullen broke up the gathering, so news of the conspiracy made its way back to Meredith. Shortly after, Orsino sent a letter to Hawke asking her to help him stand up to Meredith, who seemed ready to do something truly drastic. There's lots of stuff I've missed, like that Hawke has a very good dog named Dr. Kickflip, that she lives with Quaitrail's old buddies Bodan and Sandal, or that we got cameos from Quaitrail's friend Nathaniel, girlfriend Leliana, and boyfriend Zevran in King of Ferelden Alistair, the whole Mark of the Assassin and Legacy DLCs, but this is already too long, so let's just dive in to the finale.